Waves are amazing, there's no doubt about that, but in no time they can turn into a nightmare. Sometimes we take for granted just how dangerous oceans, waves, and tides are. So if you're planning for a beach vacation that includes stress-free tanning, catching up on a good book, and sipping on a tasty beverage, keep on watching to see what dangerous waves may catch you by surprise. Take as an example Iceland's Reynisfjara sand beach. Claimed as one of the most beautiful beaches on the planet by many world-renowned magazines such as the National Geographic or the Condé Nast Traveler, the beach is perfect for selfies. How so? That's because the pitch-black sand stands out beautifully against the clear blue waves. But beauty comes with a price. Reynisfjara might be beautiful, but it's also deadly. Crowned as one of the most dangerous places in Iceland, the beach is known to take naive tourists and travelers' lives by surprise. So why is it dangerous? That's because the roaring waves and currents are known to play a cruel game to its visitors. All of a sudden, one wave sneaks up the sandy beach as you're taking pictures, and it's considerably farther than the waves that came before it. These are what most tourists and locals call the sneaker waves, as they might appear out of nowhere. Now it might not look like much, but tragically, guests have been dragged into the ocean, some cases of which have been reported to be fatal. Sneaker waves are huge coastal waves that arrive suddenly, even in groups one after the other. If that's not enough, some of these waves can increase quickly in speed just before reaching the shore. This is because the ocean floor gradually gets deeper away from the shore, making strong ocean currents even more dangerous. You're also at risk of drowning here. The fact that the wave pulls you out and sweeps the sand and gravel from under your feet is one of the reasons behind this. Nothing can be done to save you once you're in the ocean, since the currents will slowly take you away from the coast. So, how should you avoid this when encountering a sneaker wave? Most people don't realize the risk and go too close to the sea. So the most obvious preventive measure is to stay away from areas known by locals to have powerful currents. Avoid going swimming or surfing there too. Your strength in the water won't help. Most importantly, never face the water away from you. That selfie isn't worth dying for. On to the next one. Ever been to Kauai? Well, if you haven't, then you've probably seen it a lot of times in Hawaii's advertisements. What's not to like? Scenic beaches, relaxing atmosphere, and adrenaline-pumping adventure activities only manage to scrape the surface of what the island has to offer. But practice precaution because Kauai's beaches are no joke. This is because of the numerous undertows that take place there. An undertow is basically the current of water below the surface that moves in a direction opposite to the surface. Confusing? Well, imagine a swimmer going in the other direction but can't do so. That's because undertow transports water carried onto the beach by breaking waves, having the capacity to pull a swimmer towards the ocean with strong force. Typically, it commonly occurs in Luma High Beach, or what others like to call it Luma Dai, because of the numerous lives it has taken. But that isn't the end for Kauai's deadly waves. These other ones are what we call rogue waves. Considered as the highest one-third of waves on average over a period of time, rogue waves can take even the biggest ships and oil rigs and render them useless. They often occur in Hanakapiai Beach, which is situated on Kauai's Napali coast, about 2 miles from the Kalalau Trail. This beach can only be described in one word: rough. The sand shoreline of the beach is only visible during the summer, because the tides during the winter are so powerful and dangerously high that they sweep it away. Here's something even scarier. At least 15 drowning victims have not yet been discovered due to the high currents on this beach. Rogue waves are also frequent in Queen's Bath, sometimes called the Pool of Death. Just imagine having rocks that are slippery and can break your balance at any moment. Moving on, let's hop out and take a trip to Mexico and see a wave which is known to take tourists while naked. Playa Zipolite is one of the most popular locations to visit. Tourists swarm to explore the steep mountains and jagged coast, but also because it's one famous nude beach. But here's our advice. Skip the skinny dipping because powerful riptides might drag you away. I mean, Zipolite isn't nicknamed Playa de los Muertos or Beach of the Dead for nothing. Riptides or rip currents are hazardous offshore water flows that are present at beaches when waves crash across a surf zone and are to blame for many swimming-related injuries. They can move through these channels offshore very quickly, sometimes at rates of over 2 meters per second, which is faster than certain Olympic swimmers. Which means that even swimmers of all skill levels can be carried a considerable distance offshore by even mild rip currents. In just 1 minute, a rip current can easily carry a person to the length of a football field. What makes it even more dangerous is that you're often led to believe that you're simply flowing with them. Things only get frightening when you realize that you have suddenly traveled far from the security of the beach, and at that point, the majority of individuals begin to panic. They attempt to swim back to the shore against the current and exhaust all of their energy in the process. Think you had enough? Well, buckle down because our trip to Portugal might leave you traumatized by waves just because of how big they can get. The 1.5-kilometer long stretch of golden sand at Praia do Norte, which is surrounded by sand dunes and not much else, isn't what makes the beach famous around the world. In fact, it's because in 2011 the beach made headlines when American surfer Garrett McNamara rode a record-breaking 24-meter wave here. What exactly did McNamara ride for it to be such a big deal? Well, that's a giant white-capped wave. This usually occurs in deep water when the wave height becomes too large compared to the wave length, which is exactly why Praia do Norte is the perfect spot for those types of waves. That's because there's a huge channel of deep water offshore that points directly to the coast. And thanks to the Nazare Canyon, it can effectively funnel the Atlantic swell and into the beaches of Nazare, producing massive waves, and Praia do Norte taking the brunt of this all. But of course, if we're talking about unsurfable waves, then Shipstern Bluff should not be forgotten. Considered one of the craziest and most dangerous surf places on the globe, Shipstern Bluff is a place full of slabbing waves, sea life, and its steep coastline. Its notoriously complex inner construction, nicknamed as the Step, makes it a very challenging wave to learn. Surfing waves typically drift toward the coast and pick up speed as they rise, then break cleanly to one or both sides. A slab wave, on the other hand, travels quickly through deep water before slamming into the reef. It appears out of nowhere in a matter of seconds, sucking the water from the shallows in front of it before going out with a loud thud. A slab's strength and hazard are mostly determined by its thickness as well as its height. That's why for surfers, riding one of these monsters is like trying to flee from a crumbling parking garage as it closes into them. Slab is so dangerous that its parts are labeled for surfers. The takeoff is very fast and vertical, and when the waves hit the reef first, it sucks into a hole or a pit that can leave any surfer killed. What's even more scary is that these waters are often paired with great white sharks, which is not the most welcoming surfing company. Yikes! There's nothing more scarier than dangerous waves that can happen at any beach and at any moment. Plunging waves are known to rear up quickly and shatter violently downhill. They're the traditional barrel of tube waves that surfers love. But sometimes they break quite close to the coast, causing physical harm such as spinal fractures. They'll knock you off your feet and pull you out, which makes them risky for beginners and swimmers who are not that strong. There are also surging waves, which are created when large waves hit shorelines that are steep. Because they don't break like other waves, they may appear to be harmless, but their powerful backwash, which is the pulling or sucking impact, can make them potentially dangerous. Finally, let's end with a classic bang, and that is tidal waves. Tidal waves are magical but deadly. That's because instead of being created by the ocean's geology, they're caused by astronomical forces. In short, the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon on the ocean water can create these ridiculously large ocean waves that can happen within a time period of 12 hours. Jeez! Which of the ways we introduced have you already experienced?